Gotta be real, guys, it really does pain me that this is a story we're talking about, but we do have to talk about it. Here's a quote. "You can take the developer out of Blizzard, but you can't take the Blizzard out of the developer." Now that's from a Steam review for Stormgate, and it's certainly mincing no words in their disappointment. Obviously though, is that with Stormgate, or is it with some sort of other decision? So what we're dealing with is a 59% user score that is going down right in the middle of their advanced early access period. So Stormgate overall is a game that is going to be free to play, and they essentially explain that because of the things that they learned from StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void and how StarCraft went free to play. The thing is that the true free-to-play early access starts on August the 13th, while the paid advanced access is on the 30th of July. Now, the good news is that the loudest criticism is not about the game itself. It is about a team of ex-Blizzard developers seemingly making microtransaction decisions that remind people too much of Blizzard's nickel and diming and costly microtransactions, especially seen in games that have came out since StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void. I know that this team is running a mission-driven company where their mission is that StarCraft 2, the game that they love, that they live and they breathe, that it could not happen under Blizzard. If they are truly on board and that is their primary mission, then let's try to work out where they've went wrong and give them real feedback so that we can actually have nice things. So let's do that together. But the good news is my team have actually got content for you, much of which you won't find here. And this is not some Patreon that doesn't post things. No, we have regular quality analysis from us to you, and it's how we're increasing our job security, providing actual value with no ads and no algorithm. And if you want to check out the latest edition of our daily newsletter loading screen, I've linked it down below. So essentially the story with this team is they want to do StarCraft-like stuff, but they've recognized there's an underserved audience within what StarCraft was. And that's because whenever they did the co-op stuff in StarCraft 2, Legacy of the Void, it actually went gangbusters. I've seen numbers and that sort of thing as to how well that actually did. It just wasn't massively talked about. So they want to do right on that to serve those people, to of course foster the competitive esports scene that everybody loves from StarCraft, and to consider lowering the skill floor for the purposes of bringing new players into the genre. And that's not necessarily by making the mechanics worse and easier. It's actually by doing interesting things like optionally having automation for resource gathering, for production, for that kind of thing. The sort of situation where an experienced StarCraft vet will be way more efficient with all of that, but for somebody else who's learning the ropes, guess what? That is their way into the genre. That is something that I fundamentally do believe in, I think is a good idea. So this is an attempt to bring back a certain kind of real-time strategy game in a way that is actually sustainable. It's the sort of thing where they know they will not be earning the amount of money that Bobby Kotick would have wanted them to earn back when they were doing StarCraft things, or when executives thought that Heroes of the Storm could be the next League of Legends. No, what they're doing is something for their audience, and that is why it kind of hurts and stings what's happened right now. So this is a game that earned $2.3 million to cover marketing costs and things like that earlier on this year, after the game was already fully funded through development as a result of a $35 million investment. And I think it's the knowledge of that investment that makes the paid advanced access kind of go a little bit messy, because in both Kickstarter and the Steam pre-orders, you could buy Founders Packs for the game. Now, the Founders Packs would be doing things like offering some, Kickstarter exclusive rewards, like collector's editions, that kind of thing. But the most backed version was the Ultimate Founders Pack. That was $60, with the key features being 3 heroes, campaign chapters 1 through 3, a Fog of War shader, and early access to tests and the eventual advanced access. Just over 15,000 people backed the game at that level, and that means that all of those people have had access to the game's advanced early access period on Steam, where the first chapter is out alongside the prologue. And that means that many of the people who would want to go and play in advanced access have already paid to do so. And so because these people have already paid, it's not surprising that the game only debuted at 62nd on the bestsellers list. That's because that list on Steam is done by revenue. Now, all of those people who have in some way paid for access for the game were greeted day one with the option to buy a new hero for $10. That feels bad. The hero is called Wars. Now, there's a funny thing with this hero that could be why they've ended up going this way. So, Wars is a hero. The gameplay of this hero actually looks really cool, but it's a collaboration with Simu Liu, right? And along with that, they've got a very, lavish cinematic that was revealed at the Game Awards. So I have to wonder if that's part of the reasoning here, if they're thinking that doing a super big, super sauced up character with a famous actor, you could sort of see the justification for that internally, but absolutely see how that is an awful day one experience for somebody who just didn't really expect that to be the deal that they would get because of the amount of money that they put in. As captured by Reddit, here's one person who said, "I backed the game for $217. Why is there a co-op hero I don't own on launch?" And that's the thing. I don't think anybody in good faith buys a Founders Edition for this game expecting that they are going to get like the lifetime package, right? The lifetime package for a free-to-play game. That's just not what people would expect. What they would expect, though, is the entirety of the launch slate of the content. So basically everything released up until the end of early access. I think that's what a lot of people, especially backing at a higher amount of money, would actually expect from a game like that. And if I was Frost Giant, I would absolutely give these people a goddamn bloody amazing deal, right? Just go full Oprah and say, hey, your Founders Access also includes all of these heroes and monetization that we plan through the duration of our early access period. That way, those people feel like they are goddamn VIP, concierge, just, the bee's knees customers. And that means they will go on to be your fans, right? They will be your fans. They will share your word. They will become passionate about your game because they understand that they are basically your vanguard. Everybody knows Frost Giant cannot win the war that they want to win with just the founders. And that is why the founders need to not be overly cash extracted. No, the founders need to have an amazing experience because they've paid up front based on faith. And the point is that they then get other people to play. The developers may say back to this, but hey, come on a second. The players have not been denied anything that they paid for. They have got everything that we said they would have in their packages. But the thing is, that's logic. Don't use that. What you need to do and what matters to a customer is the tactile, the sensory, the emotional experience. And this is the wrong emotional experience for the customer. And what's worse is it's one that plays into all of the worst things that have happened with Blizzard since the wonderful invention that was the $25 horse. Now, Wars is not a $25 horse that's being put into a game that you already pay $15 a month. It is not some ludicrously large, platinum bundle that comes with a horse so you can buy extremely expensive cosmetic armor in Diablo, right? It's not that kind of thing. But Frost Giant were built up in people's minds to be better than the company that they left, because they left that company. Why? Because that company would no longer fund the sorts of games that they want to make. They had a deeply held conviction that they were able to back up with StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void, like actual player statistics, and that's why they were able to get $35 million in that investment. And the thing is that a part of that financial model that will have actually got them that investment is what Legacy of the Void actually did, and to success. So if you're not aware of that, they had this thing, it was called, I think, Co-op Commanders, right? So it would be quite PvE. You and your friends would be doing big, stupid, interesting missions with the Co-op Commanders. You could buy the different Co-op Commanders so you could have the full set. Then you were able to purchase the campaign, the campaigns individually. You could, of course, play the arcade. And then they did a mission pack for the character of Nova. Now, to me, that was really cool. I loved StarCraft 2, and I was really sad at the end of Legacy of the Void. I mean, I love gameplay, but I would love to get more just story and missions and things like that in this world. The Nova mission pack was actually great. It played well, it was super fun, but it just was not the sort of thing that Blizzard was interested in making, because guess what? They could try to have Heroes of the Storm take on League of Legends. And you may say that's me being facetious, that these are made by different people. No, those were both products happening under Team 1, which was the StarCraft team. But again, even though they said all of those things, that does not matter, because what matters is the human's direct emotional experience. And that means that if they had have waited until the full launch to activate the shop, this would have went better. Now, to be completely clear, this is not some sort of God's gift to Earth, absolutely perfect game that is just being saddled by one rocky launch decision. There are other things going on that are a little messy in terms of reception to the game. I want to talk about those. There are many complaints. Some people say generic art design for the 3 factions, a campaign that is underwhelming in terms of design, some writing, length, quality of missions that people are not necessarily pleased with, no offline skirmish mode, no mod support, things like character portraits, just all of that stuff. But even with all of that, there's a lot of positivity. Basically, the core of the design in the 1v1 mode, while not as polished as StarCraft 2 by the time it hits Legacy of the Void, it's not that good. It would be hard to expect it to be that good, but there's a lot of solid fundamentals and strong gameplay variety between the different factions. I think that is great considering that this is an early access launch, and I definitely have a willingness to, give good grace in those design things, because I think these are developers that actually do want to listen and do want to improve. But obviously, this is not where the dev team wanted things to start. but it is just a start. And because of that, they've actually made a public post engaging with the criticisms here. And it's pretty interesting, so let's read it. They thank people. They say that they have had 98.6% server uptime, which to be honest is a bloody refreshing thing to see for a new game launching in early access. Maybe it's the case that they have some experience for actually running a game like this at a massive scale because it was StarCraft 2, and that's rolled into here. Then they've said that campaign had half of the total playtime that they've actually seen in their numbers. And then they talk about reviews and time investment, where basically they say that from their data they are seeing that the more time people actually put into the game, the more of the game that they see, the higher they're generally seeing the review scores being. And that does make a hell of a lot of sense. I mean, just think about it. You're going to leave a negative review if you have an immediately bad reaction and you're just not really willing to give it the benefit of the doubt anymore. Whereas there are other people who can say, well, I am willing to push through this thing that's ticked me off because I do want to see everything else going on in this game. That sort of person will obviously have a higher chance of leaving a positive review because they're going to be more open to seeing the positives in the game because they just weren't as particularly perturbed by whatever got other people. Now, you could also look at that and think about survivorship bias, because what if those people who left those initial negative reviews didn't have those pain points? Would they have then went on to leave lots of great positive reviews? Maybe they would have, in which case, well, again, it's like the Spitfires with holes in them, the bombers with holes in them that taught everybody a lot about survivorship bias in the Second World War. And then there's the obvious topic of wars. They basically said this: they cannot give wars away for free to people because refunding individual players is not feasible. So what they're going to do is have the next available hero be given to anyone who purchased the Ultimate Tier bundle on either a crowdfunding platform or on Steam. They also said they're going to be acting on feedback around campaign character models and faces, also audio issues, quality of life things, like even just being able to pause during the campaign. That's the sort of thing that just won't really matter to a 1v1 player as much. But if you're playing campaign, well, no, that is actually awful to the campaign experience. To me, it overall seems those are pain points they're aware of, but basically thought were shippable, and it's maybe turning out that's not the case with all of their audience. So again, if they thought about their time doing StarCraft 2, Legacy of the Void, well, its campaign was pausable from day one. Its character faces looked great from day one. It just didn't have those things. And that's inherently the scale of being a startup, as opposed to being a scaled up business that is able to make a long-term strategic investment. That is what leads to StarCraft day one polished experience. With this, they've got 35 million. They need to bloody well prove that they can get this thing going, and that means they don't have the time. That means that they're having to do the thing, build the airplane after you've jumped off the cliff, and hope you're able to pull up in time and get the escape velocity. And I totally know that you could hear that and think, well, that's everything that's wrong in gaming and the industry, and to a degree, yeah, I mean, I can certainly feel that and I can agree with you. But what then about a more foundational decision? As an example, how the game looks and feels stylistically. Plenty of people look at the factions and say, oh, the factions just look generic to me. Now, the thing is, in terms of gameplay diversity, there are loads of really interesting units in those factions. And that's the thing, this is a deeply gameplay-oriented team. I certainly do look at aspects of Stormgate and I sort of say to myself, these are fundamentally not like really interesting me or just lighting me in fire in terms of narrative, in terms of like passion, interest, that sort of thing. I totally get that. I think if they're able to hook me with the gameplay, I could then slowly actually fall in love and appreciate more of the universe that they've crafted. But it's just very hard to make a spiritual successor that doesn't feel like a budget version of the thing that you're trying to, to sort of make the new version of. Because guess what? StarCraft was made with a many tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions budget, whereas this is just not. Like, I know 35 million is a lot of money to you or me, but actually that can go surprisingly quick if to pull off a game that will feel playable to a StarCraft player. You need to go and acquire the best talent when it comes to like game feel, servers, netcode, all of that. Take the whole Kingdoms of Amalur thing. They ended up spending so much time and money on the creativity, the world, but guess what? They didn't get the other things and it crashed and burned. And this leads to a fundamental problem within strategy gaming. Strategy game fans are playing strategy games because they like them. There are people who will play chess because they like chess, and while they will respect Go, they won't play Go because they don't enjoy Go as much as chess. They might both be strategy games that they would give an objectively high rating to, but which one do they want to keep on playing? Because look, we've seen this lesson in other contexts. Company of Heroes, Homeworld, Warcraft 3 Reforged, and so many other things. Even take a look at what's went on with Total War. Turns out some people just love how medieval feels, and the new ones, for all of their technical advancements and things that they can do, they just don't feel the same. That player wants chess. They don't want to play some other game, even if it looks visually similar to what they actually like playing. That's the thing about a strategy game. In a way, they shouldn't have sequels. They should just have continued support and sensible monetization, so instead of having to sell you a brand new game that's been re-architected from the ground up every 10 years, they just give you the game that you like, and you continue playing and continue paying to fund the development, so you get the thing you like forever. And in fairness to the Stormgate team, that is literally their entire plan. I don't think they want to make a Stormgate 2. They're actually, I think, trying to solve the real problem where, look, what if somebody loves Total War Warhammer in the fantasy setting, and then Warhammer 40k comes out and it feels a bit different to play, and then they're looking back at Warhammer 3 and they're like, oh man, I'd love some more DLC or things for this, but I just can't keep on playing it because it's kind of ran out of steam. But that's a shame. I'd totally buy new content for it. You can see how that happens, particularly with the strategy game fan. And the best example of this that I've seen personally within the strategy game genre, I mean, come on, man, it's got to be Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition. That thing's amazing. They're making new content for that game. They're releasing patches that are, I mean, if you watch a YouTuber, Spirit of the Law, fantastic stuff. And that's because they fundamentally understand these people don't want to play Age of Empires 3 or Age of Empires 4 even. They love Age of Empires 2. They want a new civilization to play in Age of Empires 2 that feels like an AoE 2 civ. That's the whole point of how you support a game like this. Think about sport, think about football. People don't want to play football too. They want to play football. And that's why, as somebody who has a bias towards this studio, towards this game, and who absolutely wants to see this succeed, because StarCraft 2 was one of my favorite games of all time and literally was the reason why I started doing YouTube in the first place. That is why it was a little disappointing to see this end up being a misfire. And I hope that this was a genuine mistake or oversight. I hope that they did not have to launch this at the time that they did because of pressure from the people who invested $35 million in their future. Because maybe the people with the money don't understand all of these little consumer-facing details that, to us, deeply matter in an experiential way. Okay, that's my thoughts on this story, and I suppose a bit of a thesis of how one becomes a custodian of a game that people deeply love. I hope they can turn this around. That's it for me. If you want to check out the latest thing from my team, well, you can check out our loading screen episode down below. Have a brilliant day. See you next time.